Hey friend, Chris Vandeviver here from WhyLogicProRules.com, the website that helps you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro. Today I want to share with you my 3 favorite ways to use track alternatives in Logic Pro. Track alternatives have become this feature that I once had no interest in, and now I absolutely love it. And that might sound kind of weird. Track alternatives were released back with the 10.3 update, so they've been around for a while. But when I first saw what track alternatives were, all I could think was playlists in Pro Tools and other DAWs. And because I'm such a Logic Pro loyalist, I'm a loyalist to the take folder system, quick swipe comping, that I just saw it and I immediately wrote it off. So I own that. That was completely biased of me, and I'm taking it back now because track alternatives are amazing. Track alternatives are the system that allow you to basically organize different creative ideas and audition them in a very easy manner. Right within this project here, we can see that some names have a letter right next to the name. A, B, a couple other ones. And track alternatives allow us to flip between these different ideas that we lay down. So for example, I have this drum pattern here, and I have 3 different ideas, starting with A, which is just an intro really. It was the very beginning of writing this drum part. B, which is much more fleshed out, and C, which kind of combines the intro of A and the rest of B. And if you don't see these letters and these kind of double arrows right next to the letters on your particular Logic projects, all you need to do is configure the track headers in your projects. So I'm going to use Option T to open up the menu to adjust the track header options, or you can just right click or hold Control and click. And right down here, we have Configure Track Header. And right at the very bottom of the other view options are the track alternatives. Now, if you've created a track alternative through some other means, you will always see the letters and the double arrows, but the other tracks where there are no track alternatives, we don't see this option. I'm going to enable this, and we're going to examine maybe this Mellotron track here. Let's zoom in. Now you can click on these double arrows to offer you a bunch of different options, from creating a new track alternative, or we can back up and we can duplicate, which is really helpful if you want to make a change to an existing idea. We can rename our track alternative. So instead of A, B, and C, we could call this, maybe cool idea 1. Perfect. And we can also show the inactive track alternative ideas. So right now for this Mellotron track, I have 2 ideas. I have cool idea 1 that we called it now, and B. I'm going to switch back my name because I don't really like that name. So we'll just stick with A. We can either promote an inactive track alternative to the top level or just audition it on its own. So move the playhead. We'll just power up. By pressing this power button, we switch from track alternative A to B, but without actually promoting B to the top level. So we can take a listen to each rendition. And just by pressing the power button, we switch back. And then we can promote track alternative B to the top level and swap it with A. So now B is our active track alternative if we close everything down by going to the double arrow and hiding inactive. And again, you can swap between the two just from here without having to show all the inactive takes. But showing the inactive takes can be really helpful. In this case with our drums, we show the inactive takes. Again, you can see that I have a couple different variations. And what I did is that I created a new track alternative. So now we have A through D. And I selected the intro of A, held Option and clicked and dragged to D from A. So now we've copied and pasted the intro of one track alternative. And then if we squash this up, I selected the rest of B, holding Option, clicked and dragged, to then copy the rest of the performance. So now I've combined 2 different track alternatives together. So this would be number 1 in my list. Track alternatives' primary purpose is to allow us to save and organize different creative ideas and then be able to audition them side by side very quickly. Just be able to flip through like you're just flipping through pictures on your phone or something. And it's fantastic, in my opinion. I own this now. I love track alternatives. But another reason that I love track alternatives is the ability to organize bounces and edits across different tracks. Let me show you what I mean. In this case, I have just a rough vocal take that originally started, if we switch to A, as a comp. We have our take folder with our quick swipe comping. So I'm not disowning that. I love it. But I like to commit to ideas to keep things organized. And prior to track alternatives, the way that I like to organize my sessions, for example, we have this vocal track. It's been comped. I don't want to mess with the comp. So I would hold Control and B, open the bounce regions in place, or you can go obviously to File down to Bounce regions in place. And I would bounce this in place to a new track. Let's do it right now. We'll bypass the effect plugins and set everything to go. We bounce this in place. And now we have this brand new track with the comp completely committed. And then from here, maybe I would dig into flex time and then bounce, or flex pitch and then bounce to commit to those edits. And from here, with the now muted comp that we have, I would hold Option, power down, and then use Control H to hide that track. So it's still there. It's still available to me in case I need to go backwards in time. But this is another great job for track alternatives. Instead of bouncing and then having more and more tracks in your session, we can just create a new track alternative. And instead of bouncing the regions in place, we can bounce a track in place right on the same track. And that's what I did with B. I bounced in place. So let's do it right now. We'll take track alternative A. I'm going to duplicate this track alternative. So now we have a duplicate of this take folder. And to commit to it, I would go up to File, go down to Bounce, Tracks in place, or Control Command B. And then I would bounce this on the same track. So replace track. Click OK. It's going to bounce the entire track. And now we have this committed version of the take folder. But if we learn later that we really need to go back to that take folder and make some adjustments, perfect. Let's now go to track alternative A. There it is for us to go in and finesse and then go through the same process of duplicating the track alternative and bouncing the track in place. The same can be said for flex edits. Right here, I have a delayed vocal ad lib. Let's take a quick listen to it. Cool. So you can hear it. It repeats over and over. And maybe I want to use flex time to adjust the timing of this delay throw, but I don't want to mess with the original version. Well, okay, let's go ahead and duplicate this track alternative. So now we have 3 versions, as you can see, but we're going to work on version C. I'm going to open up flex mode, and then I'm going to switch maybe to tempophone or speed. And then I'm just going to hover my mouse right here, zip it up, take a listen. Opposite direction. Let's see what speed offers us. And once I'm happy, I can just go ahead and commit to this idea. So again, we'll duplicate and then we'll bounce this track in place. Perfect. And then we can, just flip through the different options, show the inactive. And there are all our versions of this one idea. I love it. The last reason that I love track alternatives is if you have the foresight ahead of time to create a group for all of your tracks, then you can flip through different versions of your project just by, creating a new track alternative each time you contribute a new idea to the project. For example, if we select all of our tracks in this session, if we go right down here to the group field, and we're going to create a new group, we'll name this group All. And I don't care about mute or volume, but I do care about track alternatives. Now check it out. If we create a new track alternative for everybody, so we'll just duplicate. We've now created a duplicate track alternative across our project. Cool. Let's now swap between the different variations. We can see that B has been swapped out for everybody. Switch to A. We see some variations. And again, this requires some foresight from you to do this at the very beginning of your project, to group everything and create a new alternative every time you create a new idea. Because in this case, we can see across the board, everybody is on track alternative A. If I switch to B, everybody's on B. The one hiccup is if you don't set up this track alternative system across the project at the very beginning of your project. In this case, my favorite drum performance was drum performance B, while for the Mellotron, it was A. And you can see that it's flipping A and B and C across the board. Logic doesn't seem to remember that I have a preference in this group scenario. It would be awesome if at some point in the future, Logic could remember like scenes of track alternatives. So you wouldn't necessarily have to set up this grouping feature across the board at the very beginning of a project. But there you have it, 3 reasons that I love track alternatives. The ability to organize and audition different creative ideas. Number 2, being able to organize different bounces and edits on the same tracks without having to create a new track each and every time, and then powering down and hiding it in the background. Now different bounces can just live on the same track lane. And number 3, being able to save track alternatives across an entire project using groups, which allows you to basically save different snapshots of your song and production as it evolves. So I hope that was helpful for you. If it was, as always, I highly recommend subscribing to the YouTube channel, Why Logic Pro Rules, or subscribing on the website itself, whylogicprorules.com. Every week I'm posting new videos, new emails, and posts to help you get the most you can out of Apple's Logic Pro. Thanks so much.